It's time for
DodgerHeads.
Hi, everyone, and welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Medium Large Sports Network. My name is Matthew Moreno, and joining me for this special breaking news episode back from Lakers Nation. I say unfortunately, Daniel, not because I don't enjoy getting to do these with you, but unfortunately because the Lakers aren't playing. But you're here now to do this groundbreaking news video, with the breaking news that just came out over the last, half hour. So it started with, if you've missed it, which looking at the comments, I don't think many people have. Fabian Ardaya of The Athletic reported that Dalton Rushing was coming up. The Dodgers are going to promote him today. I know we were kind of then texting what's going on? This is kind of weird. Conforto's doing well. And then the other domino falls of, the Dodgers are also going to DFA Austin Barnes. Daniel, let's kind of start with just sort of your first reaction to either parts of this news. I'll let you kind of take it whichever way you want.
Yeah, well, I told you guys I wasn't doing any live shows until Austin Barnes was gone, so here I am. No, just kidding. I was pretty much like everyone else. I was pretty surprised, less so at the fact that they DFA'd Austin Barnes, and more so just at the timing. What forced them to make the decision now, and we'll get into it, but that was kind of my first reaction, was wow, they finally did it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, let's stick with the Austin Barnes component, because we can get into Rushing and maybe, what he's going to bring. Longest tenured position player on the Dodgers roster. This is his 11th season with the team. Obviously, the relationship with Clayton Kershaw, the different intangibles, the stuff that I sort of tongue in cheek, but when I would bring up hey, he's valued in the clubhouse from a game planning perspective, all that stuff. It wasn't me. Yes, I would kind of have fun with a lot of that, but also it was hearing from the different players speak about Austin Barnes, from Dave Roberts, from the pitching coaches and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I didn't see this happening. I know Anthony's been on here. Jeff has obviously been on here several times, sort of discussing. And even, Chris Taylor is loop Chris Taylor into this as well, of the Dodgers don't really do this to kind of the long tenured veterans. Jason Hayward was a little bit of an exception last year. And even that one surprised me, because I know, we kept talking about, hey, he's really good friends with Freddie Freeman. The Dodgers take care of their stars. I don't think they would do it. And they did do it. And I chalked that one up to, hey, as much as Hayward is respected in the baseball community, and he made a quick impact in the Dodgers clubhouse during, I want to call it brief time, but certainly brief compared to Austin Barnes and Chris Taylor. Ultimately, he wasn't somebody who had been around for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years like these guys have. So I still, I understand Barnes' struggles over the last few years. I know defensively, throwing down a second bait, controlling the run game was becoming an issue, in addition to, he's not exactly tearing the cover off the ball at the plate. I still am surprised by that this is the path that they went down with Austin Barnes.
Yeah, and I think the key thing that you just said right there is Barnes' struggles over the last few years. It's not like this is a new development and it's this guy's all of a sudden really bad and we just can't do it anymore. Barnes has been the same player for the last half decade, or even longer probably. What Barnes is. So that's where the surprise came from me, is why now? It's not, if the Dodgers were a 500 team and struggling and it's we need a spark, okay, I would get it, but they're cruising along on pace for 100 wins, as they always have been. Like you said, Barnes did provide those intangibles, a clubhouse leader, calls a good game. Obviously, outside of that, doesn't bring a whole lot of positives to the table on the field, but at the same time, it is the backup catcher spot, and he's playing once or twice a week. So that his performance, if you look at the numbers, obviously that's very worthy of a player that should be DFA'd and not on a team like the Dodgers. But just for the simple fact that they're still, winning as many games as they always have. And it's not like an injury. Like if a Will Smith injury happened and you're like, all right, we want to call someone up who could play every day, then it would be like, all right, let's get Rushing up here. But as far as we know, Will Smith is healthy, and this is just a decision at the backup catcher spot. So that's why I think that's kind of where the confusion comes from.
Yeah, and I want to get to the super chat from Jonathan Montgomery. Jonathan, thank you for being in here with us. He wants to know if Will Smith is okay. As Daniel said, to the best of our knowledge, he is. I mean, he was in the lineup last night. He had, I think, 3 hits along with Michael Conforto. Like, he was one of the few bright spots for the Dodgers. So, by all accounts, Will Smith is fine. My initial thought, in between the time of the report that Rushing was coming up and that Barnes was going to be DFA'd, I sort of thought, I had to double check. Like, I didn't know if maybe his wife was pregnant again and maybe going on paternity leave, and they thought, okay, like, let's give Will Smith a chance. But then I think she might have just had their second child not that long ago, not that she's still pregnant. So that ruled that out. And then, yeah, I mean, I still was kind of scratching my head. You mentioned, the Dodgers have, they're still not in first place, or I think first place in the NL West still.
Half game.
Even, by a half game, not with the best record in baseball anymore, but they're certainly doing okay. To play devil's advocate, because is this, I don't want to call it a panic move, but is it sort of a panic move because you meant it's the backup catcher spot, right? Like, as much as we get on these shows and people complain and say Barnes needs to go and this and that, we can understand those desires and wishes, but ultimately it's the backup catcher. Like, how big of a difference is he making? Is this indicative of maybe the Dodgers seeing some other stuff going on? Because I know, I was texting with you, I said, hey, I wonder if Outman's just going down and they're going to have Rushing at the bench bat.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say panic, but I definitely think, even though the Dodgers record is as great as it is, it's not like they're clicking on all cylinders or anything. And I definitely think when you look at the bottom of that lineup, there are a ton of holes there, and they definitely could use a guy like Dalton Rushing. And I also think part of it is that Dalton has kind of pushed the envelope by, continuing to hit no matter where he's playing. He's been tearing the cover off the ball in AAA, and you can only leave a guy down there for so long before you kind of have to either call him up, trade him, do something. He's not going to be, a AAA guy forever. So I definitely think he kind of helped push the envelope with his play, and we'll see. I don't know if they trust him in the outfield, but if this is a case where he's getting 2 starts at catcher a week and 2 starts in left field, so he's playing an adequate amount, then I definitely think it makes a lot more sense. But if you're just calling him up to be the backup catcher that's going to start once or twice a week, then I don't think it makes a ton of sense, just because you want a guy like him playing every day, or at least close to every day, so he could kind of stay in that rhythm. So I guess, when Dave Roberts talks this afternoon, we'll probably get a better sense of what their plan is for Dalton Rushing. But if he's going to be in the lineup 4 or 5 times a week and they're just going to bite the bullet and say, we don't care about left field defense, which whoever has been out there in left and right field, it's not like the defense has been great either way. So I'm definitely on board with that. But to me, Rushing has to play an adequate amount for this to make sense.
Yeah, and that's what Adrian is asking. Can they still give Rushing a shot in left field at some point? Yeah, I mean, they can't. He hasn't played there a lot this season so far with AAA Oklahoma City. The kind of messaging from Dave Roberts and Brandon Gomes during spring training and heading into this season was that the Dodgers wanted Rushing to focus on catcher, which he has. I think I was looking at his game logs and innings because we were putting articles together to get them up, and he's started 16 games at catcher, 4 as the DH. He's played a couple at first base, and then
one in left field.
Yeah, it was 1 start in left field. I think he's 2 appearances overall, but it was only 9 innings total or something like that. So it has been marginal. It certainly doesn't mean that the Dodgers are fully opposed to it. I know Blake has suggested that Rushing's left field defense isn't necessarily what the Dodgers, I don't want to say believe in, but maybe are reluctant to put him out there. But to your point, and what I have brought up multiple times is the Dodgers played postseason games with Howie Kendrick in left field, and to steal a page from your book, no disrespect to Howie Kendrick, but he was not a left fielder. What I wonder though is if you put Rushing in left field, then okay. But this comes, and this is another thing you and I texted about. It comes as Michael Conforto is, on a 3-game hitting streak. His hard hits are starting to drop. He had 3 doubles last night. He can play right field, but considering how he looks in left field, like, is that something that you want to really do? I mean, it sort of seems like the Dodgers might be thinking that, because to your point, like, yes, Dalton Rushing being up is one thing, but what good is it going to really be if he still sits, if he's utilized kind of the same way that Austin Barnes is, where he starts once, maybe twice a week?
Yeah, and I do think, part of it is now you could give Will Smith even more off days, just because in theory you have, a backup who's more adequate to kind of pick up that slack. But obviously Will Smith is still going to be your starting catcher and, play almost every day. So, Rushing's going to have to find somewhere else. And I was making a joke before this about, maybe Bob was onto something when he tweeted the other day about Freddie being willing to move to third base for the Braves a decade ago, whatever it was. No, I don't think they would actually do that. But, I guess you could say if Freddie, gets a day off, you could put Rushing at first. If Shohei gets a day off, he could DH. But I just kind of struggle to see where those at bats are going to come from, unless they do put him in left field, which, to me, if that was kind of your plan, is we're going to call him up and play him in left field, then why wasn't he playing there more in AAA? Like, I don't care how bad he is. Like, there's only one way to get better, and that's to play it. And you'd rather do that at the minor league level than at the major league level, where obviously all the games count for more. So it is a bit puzzling, the timing. Just be like, even going back like to the offseason, they could have, I don't know, they gave Barnes a new contract, or they picked up his option, whatever they did. Yeah. And nothing has really changed since then. Like, Barnes is the same guy he was when he made that decision. Rushing is the same guy he was when he made that decision. So, you could have easily let Barnes go in the offseason and gave the everyday catch or backup catcher spot to Rushing, out of spring training, just because, he was just as worthy as he, then as he is now. Or even Hunter Fiducia is a quality option if things don't go well with Rushing. So to that, that I keep coming back to how surprised we are. And I think it's the timing more than anything. Like, we know that Austin Barnes isn't exactly a great player. And I know people have been calling for this for a while. So I get why some people are celebrating, but the timing is just puzzling, and what their, true plan is for Rushing.
Yeah, and let's get to sort of the other kind of elephant in the room, and then we'll open it up to questions. We're doing a shorter show than normal here, since this is a breaking news one, but we appreciate everybody who's joined us kind of middle of the day impromptu. We're up to over 1,200 people on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. So thank you, everybody. And this will be converted into podcast. So if you're listening via podcast after the fact, we appreciate you guys as well. Wherever you are, please remember to subscribe, rate, review. If you're on YouTube, ring the notification bell, all that good stuff. Clayton Kershaw. A lot of Austin Barnes has been tied to Kershaw because of their strong relationship, how much he's caught him, and all that stuff. Kershaw's now about to come back on Saturday, first his 18th season, so longest tenured player in the organization. Is that like surprising? I mean, I saw somebody comment earlier. I apologize, I don't remember who made the reference, but the Dodgers did also trade AJ Ellis, who was similar to, who was kind of Austin Barnes before Austin Barnes, where he was really close to Kershaw and stuff like that. Is there? I imagine there's not much concern. I think Kershaw is professional, but how interesting is that sort of wrinkle that right as he's about to come back, here goes Austin Barnes out the door?
Yeah, and I didn't really think of that too much, but now that you mention it, it's again another reason why the timing is just so weird here. We were talking before this about how, Rushing did catch Kershaw in one of his rehab starts, and I know they're teammates, so it's not like, Clayton's going to say anything, bad about him, but he was complimentary of the game he caught. And so maybe there was something there where Clayton was like, yeah, I'm more than comfortable with Dalton Rushing catching me. And obviously we know, Will has caught him plenty of times as well. So maybe there was an aspect of that, but yeah, I could see how maybe, Clayton would feel kind of caught off guard, just because, like you said, Barnes has been tied to him for so long, and that duo has worked really well together. And I would, if let's say this move didn't happen and Barnes was still on the roster, when that lineup came out on Saturday, I think all of us would have fully been expecting Barnes to be in there, catching Kershaw. So yeah, that is, another strange part of all this. And who knows, what involvement Kershaw had, but I would guess he would want Barnes there, in what could be his last season.
Yeah, I agree. All right, we have a few questions here, so we'll answer as many as we can for the next 5 to 10 minutes or so. Just as a reminder, if you could start it with the word question in all caps, that makes it easier for Daniel and I to pick them out as we're scrolling through the comments. Our first one is from Timmy. He wants to know, now that the Band-Aid is off, are Rojas and CT3 next?
I mean, first of all, we got to see where Teoscar and Tommy Edman are at, just because if those guys are close, then those are more roster moves that need to be made. And also, if Teo's coming back, that leaves one less spot in the quarter outfield. So, we'll see how close those guys are. But obviously, James Outman is still on the roster. He's probably, when Teo or Edman comes back, he's probably the first one down. And then, Kim hasn't exactly, impressed all that much. He's had some moments, but I don't think he's necessarily ready yet. So I would guess those are the first two guys off the roster. I don't think Rojas is in any danger of getting, DFA'd. I would guess, if anyone, Chris Taylor is probably the one, just because he starts like once every 3 weeks or whatever. But I don't think, this move is really affects those two guys at all. And who knows? Maybe, I guess it shows a willingness for the Dodgers to cut bait with guys they've really loved for a long time. But I don't think, there's anything on the horizon with these two.
Yeah, and real quick, not that Fabian's reporting or Jack or David Vassay, who were on top of this, would have led us astray, but the Dodgers did just announce right now that it is official. So Dalton Rushing has been called up from Oklahoma City, and Austin Barnes was DFA'd. So it was considered a rumor for now, just because it wasn't no announcement from the team. But as we are here at 12:34, that is now an official move. Howie Land wants to know, will Barnes be picked up by another team, or might he stay with the Dodgers as a coach? So he can't stay. I mean, he can't. If he were to clear waivers, then theoretically, yes, he could become a coach, but that would entail also him retiring. I don't necessarily see that happening just yet. Do you think he'll get claimed by a team? I'm not sure, just because of the contract. Like it's a minimal value for. I mean, excuse me, it's not like 10 million or anything crazy, but he certainly isn't necessarily meeting the expectations of even what it would be paying. I think it was a $3.5 million option that you mentioned that the Dodgers picked up during the offseason. So probably clears waivers, right? And then maybe signs with the team or chooses to remain with the Dodgers. Yeah.
No, I would imagine, he'll clear waivers. I don't think anyone will pick up that contract. And then, not exactly familiar with the catching situations around the league, but I would guess someone could use him as a backup, even if it's a team that's not really competing and they have a young pitching staff they want to develop. Like Barnes would be a good guy for that. And, injuries could happen somewhere where a team loses a starting catcher and now they need someone. So I would guess he'll get picked up by someone, maybe not right away, but if I had to bet, over under on him playing 0.5 games in MLB this season, I would take the over on that.
Okay. Eden wants to know, is it possible something else is about to happen, a move regarding another position that Rushing plays? I mean, so if you go through the list, it's first base, which Freddie like nothing's happening there. I guess short of Freddie's been playing through his ankle injury, so I mean, I don't anticipate there necessarily being any issues. He's certainly not going to get traded. Left field, Michael Conforto. Like I don't think the Dodgers are going to trade him. So yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily see. I saw somebody ask also earlier in our show, is it possible that maybe this is an audition to trade Dalton Rushing? Because we don't need to get into it now, but that's the next kind of step to all this. Is okay, he's up, but Will Smith is signed to a long-term deal. Maybe they believe in Rushing playing first base. Freddie Freeman is closer to the end of his career than the beginning, but he still has a couple years here, so it's
definitely not slowing down either. So.
Right? Yeah, that's not it's not happening this season. It's not happening next season. Maybe not even the year after that. So, I mean, do you see this maybe being a precursor to something else?
I would say I think the point about them maybe showcasing him for a potential trade ahead of the deadline, I think there could be a point there. Just because, we all know he could rake in AAA. We've been seeing him rake all throughout the minors since they drafted him. So maybe it's like, hey, let's get this guy up, hopefully he looks good and then, raises that trade value going into the deadline, just because, like you said, it's not like the positions that, Rushing plays, the Dodgers are pretty set at all of them. Like catcher, Will Smith is locked up for 10 years. Freddie Freeman's got at least 2 more years left, and Shohei's got DH locked up for the next decade. So it's not like unless, he becomes a full-time outfielder, there isn't really a pathway for full-time at bats for Dalton Rushing. So maybe it is a bit of a, let's showcase him and then we can make a trade at the deadline. But also at the same time, if he comes up and looks great, that's probably not a guy you're going to want to trade, especially if, the rest of the bottom of your lineup continues to struggle.
Yeah. And I think, and you just took the thought from me, as well as the lineup struggles, the bench overall struggling. Like in a perfect world, you don't call up somebody like Dalton Rushing to kind of sit on the bench the majority of the week. The other side of that coin is the Dodgers could certainly use a little bit of a boost here and there. So even if he is, pinch hitting a couple times and then making 1 or 2 starts, like if that's how he's making his impact and it's leading to wins and it's kind of working out for everybody for the time being, then I think it's something that sort of needs to be done. And the Dodgers will certainly do it. Dodgers Hub wants to know, does Conforto see his playing time diminished if Rushing is in left field? So we kind of touched on this earlier. Conforto theoretically could play right field, especially while Teoscar Hernandez is out, and then that moves Andy Pages back into center field, which if you consider that a positive or a negative, I will leave up to you. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how much time Conforto how much Rushing will cut into Conforto's time. We kind of discussed that a little bit more at length earlier in the show. So if you weren't with us, just kind of rewind it. I don't want to make people sit through us repeating ourselves. All right, I think this will be our last question. It's a good one. Padme wants to know, which pitcher / game will Rushing likely catch first? So it's not going to be tonight. Yamamoto starting. Tomorrow's a bullpen game. At least Dave Roberts, as of Sasaki going on the injured list yesterday, Dave Roberts said it was probably going to be a bullpen game. It could change. I'd have to look at I know Bobby Miller just pitched, but he's struggling anyway. I'd have to look at Justin Robleski and some of the other options they have. Considering it is a bullpen game, I don't know if they would have Rushing navigate that for his MLB debut. Yeah. So I don't think tonight. I don't think tomorrow. That now puts us at Friday. I mean, maybe so. I mean, it would be kind of ironic and sort of funny, and maybe I don't think they would do it because the optics. But if he were to catch Clayton Kershaw on Saturday, I'll say either Friday or Sunday. I think are the most likely the games that we see Rushing behind the plate.
Yeah, I think Friday makes the most sense. Like you said, like you don't want to give him a bullpen game when he's not familiar with all these pitchers. And so that's a lot of information for him to take in like a 24-hour time span or whatever. So, and like you said, I don't think they'd give him Kershaw in his first, game either. So I think Friday makes sense just because, you don't want to have Will Smith necessarily catching like 5 or 6 games in a row. By the time it gets to Sunday. So I would say Friday. Yeah,
I agree. Here's Blake saying he's probably caught Sauer and Kasparis Slaughter. I mean, yeah, perhaps. And I guess if the Dodgers feel comfortable relying on just those two to do like the bulk of the game, then maybe. I still am a little skeptical though that they would have him back there, but we'll see. I mean, it's not completely. I guess the possibility is not 0%, but I still don't necessarily think it's likely. All right. Well, I think that pretty much does it for the questions. Again, thank you everybody for joining us. Kind of this breaking news, unplanned show. If you missed it, Dalton Rushing is up with the Dodgers. Austin Barnes designated for assignment. I know he has struggled over the last several years, but it is still kind of the end of a long era. He was the longest tenured position player in the Dodgers organization. He came over way back when in that trade with Kike Hernandez. Was it just them two that the Dodgers got? Or no, there was Floro.
Chris Hatcher?
Right? Oh no, Hatcher. That's right. Hatcher. Yeah. Hatcher was in
That's
that.
That's a name a lot of us have blocked out from our minds.
Yeah. So I know we all kind of I understand the frustration with Barnes, but he was around for a long time, and it's a notable move, significant move by the Dodgers. So thank you everybody for joining us. That's Daniel. I'm Matthew. We will be back on Thursday night with Jeff. The Dodgers, they do my schedule's the Dodgers play, so it'll be kind of a late post game show that night. Not 100% sure yet who's going to pair with him, but we will be back with you And then quick programming note. I know Jeff has brought it up when you guys have been on. I just want to remind everybody on Sunday, we're going to do a post-game show right after the game ends. Instead of, we usually do it Sunday night, we're going to move it up to right after the Dodgers and Angels finish the Freeway Series. So that'll be the final game. It's a 1:10 start for them. So we'll be going live probably about 4-ish, maybe 3:30 if the pitch clock is working and it's a quick game. But we will see you then. And then, we're kind of back onto our normal Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday schedule, as a lot of you guys know. As a reminder, if you are on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. We just hit 85,000. Our next push now is to get to 100,000. Once we get there, we can hopefully do a pretty cool giveaway for all you guys. So as I said, that's Daniel. I'm Matthew, and we will see you next time.